Good morning, it's Karen, and today is a recommendation video. I read voraciously, so I have a lot of recommendations, but I really enjoyed compiling this list for 4 very different types of readers. This is a very special recommendation video. This last weekend was Thanksgiving, and I had over my oldest sister and her family. They are into books. So here's 4 sets of recommendations for 4 very different people. I'm going to start with my sister. She's my oldest sister, and she's recently been getting into a lot of reading things that her and her daughters can read together, as well as a couple books that I recommend here and there. Usually every summer I have a book to recommend her. This summer I didn't, so I was thinking about what ones I might recommend her for the winter months, and I have 3. One of my favorite authors is Emily St. John Mandel, and 2 books of hers, The Sea of Tranquility and Station 11, are among my top favorite books of all time. For my sister, I'd like to recommend Station 11. If she wants to read this one, that's great, but this is the one that I think she'll enjoy the most. This one is sort of post-pandemic. There's been some sort of plague that has hit the modern world, and we experience 2 different timelines, the just before it hits and about 50 years after. This is mainly following a troupe of musicians and actors who go from town to town and entertain people who are going on with their lives without electricity, without the luxuries that we are used to. But there is something truly warming about this story. It's humans still remain kind to one another. They move on. They still create art. And Emily St. John Mandel does this wonderful interweaving of characters. So she gives you so many aha moments where you're connecting the dots between the people in the past and the people in the future. And it is so cozy. I would love for her to read this and discuss it with me someday. The next one is called The 13th Tale. I read this one a while back and I loved it. It is gothic in nature. There are secrets to be revealed, and it has that sort of gloomy romantic lens to it. The writing is gorgeous and lush, and it draws you in. And the story is about an author, I think it's an author, who wants to set the record straight on her life's story. So she hires another writer to write her childhood. You get the modern, the current day where she's telling the story to the author, and then you get her past. And her past is so twisty-turny that you just can't help but be fully immersed in it. The last one I'd like to recommend my sister is called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This would be called a young adult novel. It follows a younger woman who is set to graduate, and part of her graduation project, she has decided to try and solve a town murder. So this girl went missing and presumed dead, I think, and she seeks out to create a podcast and sort of like an essay thesis presentation to try and figure out who did it. She is such a cool person to follow. Now, if you can get the audiobook, it's incredible. It listens like a podcast, like a true crime podcast. But if you enjoy mysteries, I think this one will be a fantastic one to delve into. And there's 2 more books after it, and I think a TV show. So here's hoping you like this one. My next set of suggestions are for my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law is a techie, he is an engineer, and he tends toward the side of nonfiction, so I have pulled a couple things that I think will appeal to his interests. The first one I'd like to recommend is called How Music Got Free. This one has really stuck with me. This is all about the story of the turn of the century, so late 90s, early 2000s, when music started becoming downloadable and people could get music that normally you would just have on a CD, they could get it online. And it's the whole history of like Napster and how people used to bootleg albums. And it is so fascinating to hear retrospectively, because growing up in that time period, you remember all of that, but you don't remember the minutia. So I think you would absolutely adore this one. My brother-in-law is a very busy man, and I think this would work really well with your lifestyle, and that is the Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. This is one of my favorites that I have read in recent years. It is full of short stories. So you could pick up a short story, read it one evening, and put it down and not worry about getting back to it for a long time. He delves into all sorts of different topics and he writes so well. In fact, I think John Green, here's my hot take, John Green should stick to writing nonfiction because I think that is where he shines. So a few things that he explores: Halley's Comet, the Lascaux cave paintings, the Hall of Presidents, academic decathlon, sunsets, Piggly Wiggly, CNN, Kentucky Bluegrass, Super Mario Kart. He goes into so many different things, and it's sort of an examination of really niche corners of humanity, and he does it so well and finds some really beautiful things to say about them. And the last one I'm going to recommend for you, it is fiction, but it kind of reads like nonfiction, and that is World War Z. World War Z is a zombie apocalypse book. This one was so much fun. I remember reading this one and absolutely adoring it. It is a collection of interviews and different people's experiences of this event. And I loved reading this one because it was like short stories, but all with a binding storyline. And you got to learn more and more as you read on. This one is fast paced. It is gripping, it is terrifying, but it is so much fun. This next set is for my oldest niece, V, and she loves reading sort of the more popular books. So ones that maybe have a movie attached to them or ones that she could discuss with her friends. So I have picked a couple here that I hope you might enjoy. The first one is called The Uglies. This might be an older one for you, but The Uglies is a story in a world kind of dystopian where you want to be beautiful, and when you turn 16, you get a special surgery to make you look beautiful, and then you get to go and hang out with all these beautiful people, and it's wonderful. And the main character is excited to do this, and one day she meets someone who's not quite sure that she wants to get this surgery done. And they kind of run away together and find out, like in all dystopian books, what's wrong with wanting to look perfect and be perfect. It's an excellent exploration of beauty standards. Okay, hear me out. Romance with mermaids. This is Of Poseidon, a fun series. This follows a girl who can speak to fish, and then one day she meets a prince, but she doesn't know he's a prince. Also, he's a mermaid. So it's like, and they get on really well, and it's kind of romantic, but then she learns all about being a mermaid, and it's really fun, and I hope you want to check this one out just to have a really good time with the mythical creatures and go, well, possibly mythical. Angel Fall. This is fantastic. So the author, Susan E., wrote a lot of TV episodes, so she understands cinematography and fast-paced storytelling. So this one is a fast-paced story about how angels rebelled in heaven and have decided to come and chill here on earth, but The angels are not nice angels. They are not the like fluffy white winged playing harps and magical singing and like bestowing beautiful blessings. No, these are like warrior angels, and they are unkind, and they've basically waged war on humans, and humanity is, you know, at the brink, and they're trying to survive. And this is following Penryn and her sister and her mom, and this is a fantastic story. Just please read it. I love it. It's so good. Maybe a little bit of romance, but I think you're okay with that. I'm certain you have heard of this author, and I'm certain you've heard of this book, but I really want you to check out Clockwork Angel. She wrote the City of Glass series, which is really popular, but I think this is her best series, and it is a trilogy, so if you really enjoy this one, you might like the next two. This is The Clockwork Angel. This is Victorian times. This is about Tessa Gray, who gets kidnapped by these dark sisters because there is this underground society in which they want to... Okay, how can I explain this? This follows Tessa Gray, who is kidnapped by these dark sisters who are members of this organization called the Pandemonium Club. And they are basically set out to destroy another kind of group of people called the Shadow Hunters, which are people who are trying to hunt down, track, rid the world of evil. And through her adventures, she meets two wonderful boys, and they go on many adventures together. And she's also, I think, trying to save her brother at the same time. So there's a lot of familial saving and learning to create new friends while fighting against evils in the world. And it's all set in Victorian times, which is just immaculate. And the last one I want to recommend to you is The Summer I Turned Pretty. This is another trilogy. This is a wonderful series about a girl who's always gone to a summer house, a summer cabin on the ocean with her mother and her mother's best friend. And her mother's best friend has two sons, and they spend every single summer together at this cabin. And there's nothing like this ocean to define her summer for her. And she's at a pivotal point in her life. She's turning 16. Reality is kind of hitting her, and she feels like she's losing her last days of being at the ocean. So she's trying to soak up waking up early and diving into the pool and swimming in the water and making sand castles and cooking together with her mom, and the loveliness of having friends with whom you grew up with. This one is a fantastic one, and it was turned into a TV show that you could also check out. All right, my last set of recommendations are for Elle. She is my second oldest niece and a voracious reader. So I had to try and pick some books that I think would really grip you, some that are really smart. And I know you like fantasy, but I'm going to try and push a little bit of sci-fi on you. And we're going to start with that one, and this is called Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is a fantastic series. You could wait until you're older to read this one, maybe. People have figured out how to remain immortal, but with that comes a rising in population. So in order to keep population in check, there are something called scythes, which are equivalent to a Grim Reaper, tasked with fulfilling death. It's a little dark. The main character is recruited to be trained as a scythe, and he doesn't want to be. So it's a lot about how do we get to choose who lives and dies, and challenging a lot of what our thoughts are on the subject. So I think this one would really draw you in with its writing and the concept, futuristicness of the world, but also there are some really tough morality questions in this series. This is one of my all-time favorite fantasies. This is The Seer and the Sword. There is some sort of a plot to overthrow the king, and his daughter gets to run away, and she goes and hides in the woods and basically camps out there until one day someone comes calling because he's been sent to find her and bring her back because everything's going really poorly and they want the princess back. So, this is wonderful. You may borrow this next time I see you. Keeping on the death theme, this is Sabriel. I think I was about your age when I discovered this book, and I read the first chapter and was absolutely entranced by the concept. Sabriel, the character, lives in sort of a boarding school, and one day she is summoned to go see her father. Her father lives beyond the wall, and beyond the wall is very different. It is full of creatures and monsters and magic. And she goes beyond the wall, goes to her father's house, and discovers her father is missing, and she has to go and find him. Now, her and her father's special kind of magic, I don't know if you can see, they have a set of bells on their belt, and each bell can, once rung, can summon certain things. And she has the ability to walk in the in between life and death, and it presents itself as a river, and she must traverse this river to find her father. And it is such a cool concept and such cool magic, and it sounds dark, but it is wonderful. And there's a kitty cat that is her sidekick character, and he talks and he's snarky, and it's fantastic, and I think you would love this one. The Dragon Slayer of Trondheim. This is a favorite of mine. I don't know if you like dragons, but I'm still going to recommend this one anyway. This is set in a parallel world to our own. So imagine our world, but with dragons. And these dragons are drawn to oil. Specifically, any place that is producing a lot of petroleum products, which in Canada, a lot in the prairies. So this book is set in Canada with dragons, mostly Alberta, and it follows this boy who is the dragon slayer. He gets hired to protect these petroleum companies from the dragons, because if the dragons breathe fire on these petroleum factories, they go kaboom. And it is a very fun series. My favorite part about it was it being set in Canada. My second favorite part was that it had dragons. And my third favorite part was there was a warrior that got to go around and slay the dragons. And it was a lot of fun. And I think you would absolutely enjoy this one. The Last Apprentice is a darker sort of fantasy where this boy learns that he is part, I think he's a seventh son of a seventh son, so he gets trained as an apprentice to be a spook. And a spook is someone that goes around and basically finds witches and ghouls and banshees and banishes them from wherever they're being a nuisance. And this is a fantastic book. It is dark and it is kind of scary. So if you are a little bit hesitant on the horror side, maybe reserve this one. But I do remember this one being so gripping to read, and I think I read it in a weekend. And it's a whole big series. So if you got into this one, I think you would enjoy the rest of the series. Okay, sorry, Elle, I've got so many books to recommend you because you read so voraciously. I wanted to give you so many options. The next one that I have for you is something called The Dark is Rising. Now, this looks scary. It is not, okay? It is 5 books in one. The one that I want to recommend to you is this one. So it's not as big as you think it is. It is called The Dark is Rising, but it's the second book in a series, which you can read by yourself. You don't have to read the other ones, but if you like the whole series, you can read the whole series. The second book is called The Dark is Rising, and it follows Will, who lives in a very big family. I think he's the seventh son. Um, and he's got some sort of power, possibly, and he learns about the power of the old ones. If I remember correctly, this is set in Wales. This fly will be the death of me. When you were telling me that you were reading a book about dryads, I think my brain just went to this one immediately for that sort of old world magics and gods living in our world but hidden within nature. That reminded me so much of this one. And so if you really liked that dryad book, or even just out of curiosity, I think you would certainly enjoy this one. And lastly, this is a series that I would recommend to my sister, V, and L. I would recommend this fun series, which you can borrow from me, by the way. Any books that you saw me hold up, I own. You can borrow, no problem, because I know they come back. The first one is called Ruby Red, then Sapphire Blue, and then Emerald Green. This is a time travel series. It is super duper fun. The main character finds out that she can time travel, and every single book is told out of order. So you are kind of trying to figure out things as they go on, and things come to light, and then things get messed up, and one goes forward and some goes backwards. And it's really fun to kind of piece everything together. And if I remember correctly, it got really complicated. And I think I probably would have benefited with talking through it with somebody. And that's why I'm recommending the whole series to all three of you, because I think you could probably figure out the series together. I hope you enjoyed all of these recommendations. I've got a dozen more. I've got an ongoing list, but I didn't want to overwhelm you. So here's hoping that one of you finds one of these books intriguing enough to pick up or borrow from me. My name is Karen. I'm the Book Libronaut. I explore all types of books. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye. I don't know if you can see, there's like a fly that's just been buzzing around and it's driving me nuts. Okay.